Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Garrett Horner. This is stage 3 of Tour of Romandie. Today's race, 15.5 kilometers long, individual time trial. It's a little narrow roads, country type roads with a lot of bends. Beautiful course for individual time trial, but we're going to have a little bit of weather change out here. When the cameras come on proper, it's Brandon McNulty in the hot seat. He pulled the fastest time by about 24 seconds, but he went off super early because he's 25 minutes down on the general classification. I saw him near the front on yesterday's stage finishing summit climb at the very bottom, but after that he sat up and took a little bit of a rest, I'm sure saving his legs for the individual time trial. Well, he's in the hot seat. We didn't really get to see much except for the replay of him leaving the ramp and then coming into the finish where he's way up on time on Johan Price, and he comes through to put himself in the hot seat. We start looking at the other riders leaving the ramp. It's Felix Großschartner, his teammate from UAE Team Emirates. Well, he comes through for a flying time to get second, about 15 seconds back of the time there of Brandon McNulty. And then we're going to start following the other American, Magnus Sheffield. Sheffield rides for Team Ineos, and he leaves the ramp, and he's flying along the course. The weather's starting to change a little bit. The road's starting to get a little more damp out there for Sheffield, but he's still coming in with a flying time, and he'll bump Großschartner off to put the Americans 1 and 2, with Sheffield taking second at about 13 seconds back from Brandon McNulty. As we start looking at some of the other favorites, Julian Alaphilippe will get out there, but the Frenchman, he's going to lose some time of about 55 seconds on the general classification after this stage here. So we know his form's not exactly at the very top, and that's why we saw him get dropped yesterday with 500 meters to go. Now, we'll start looking at some of the past Grand Tour stage winners. The next guy I want to show, Tao Gegenhardt. Tao Gegenhardt's the fastest of the 5 Grand Tour winners. As we see him come through, he's about 55 seconds down on Brandon McNulty's time, but they're all starting to get a bit more into the rain and wet, messy roads up here, which is starting to slow guys down. The course, with it being these country roads, it was bumpy, lumpy, and you had to be fast through all the slight descent so you can carry your speed back up to the next little bumps. And when we start looking at the other GC favorites, Jai Hindley's coming through at about 1 minute and 17 seconds down on Brandon McNulty's time. Egan Bernal is going to come through somewhere around 120, 125. And then we're going to see Carapaz, he's coming through about the same time as Egan Bernal. And when we look at the other Grand Tour winner here, it's Simon Yates. He's losing about 1 minute and 20 to Brandon McNulty. So all 5 of the past Grand Tour winners, the one having the best time is Tao Gegenhardt. His season hasn't gone as good as the other 4 riders, but his TT here is not bad when you consider the conditions that these guys were going in, much wetter roads, and there was a lot of fast descending turns as we came into the finish. And of course, with 500 meters to go, there's the left turn that was super difficult coming off the descent, and then the right bend into the finish, and then of course sprinting to the line. Now, we're all holding out for Juan Ayuso. I told you guys yesterday he's the guy that can win today's race, and he's leaving later in the race because he finished 5th on yesterday's stage, and he was first of the GC favorites here at Tour of Romandie, bringing up that group of about 17 riders, 16 seconds down on the time of Nice on yesterday's stage 2. But when we start looking at Ayuso going, the conditions are wet and miserable. He's cutting the corners wherever he can before the first time check. Then he comes up to the time check 19 seconds down on Brandon McNulty. As he's coming down the final descent, you see him doing very good. He's in the bullhorns there. Then he pops out. He's all the way over on the right side of the road. He's shooting the apex through the left turn, coming out on the right and immediately sprinting and setting himself up for the next turn that's coming up. Comes into the final left turn. He's still got a solid lead right here because it's showing green of about 3 seconds. But he's a little too far away. Once he hits about 300 meters to go, all of a sudden he's 0 on time with Brandon McNulty. But now we see the Spaniard, he's sprinting because he's trying to win the general classification here at Tour of Romandie. So he's going full gas, sprinting, coming out of the right bend into the finish here as we see him get on the pedals with about 50 meters to go, fully going into the line, throwing his bike at the line. He's not going to win today's race, but he's 4th on the stage, 20 seconds down on Brandon McNulty. This is going to put him in the hot seat for the GC lead right here, but 4th on the stage. We start looking at the other guys that were behind Juan Ayuso, and of course, when we start looking at the leader here in the race leader's jersey, Thibaut Nice, as he's coming through, guys, he's throwing in some big efforts. If I take you back to the ramp, he fully launched himself back and then launched himself off the ramp, going full gas as hard as he can. When he's coming in down the last descent here, he's swinging it out through all of the corners and sprinting all the way to the finish, but he's about 1 minute and 30 seconds back on Brandon McNulty's time. His director back there probably should have said, hey, Nice, take it nice and easy right here on this stage 3, because we need you for the sprint stages, not tomorrow, but the next day. So just take today easy. But he was taking a ton of risk here for a guy that wasn't putting out fabulous time here on stage 3. Now, the biggest thing when we start looking at today's race, because it didn't leave a whole lot for us, I thought there was a little bit of excitement back there with Magnus Sheffield, but then the cameras went blank on Magnus Sheffield, and yeah, I had to find out later that he finished second at 13 seconds back on Brandon McNulty. But all the other riders, especially with the time check, when we're talking about Juan Ayuso, you saw he was 19 seconds down, so there wasn't a whole lot of drama. You really don't need to go in and watch today's race, unless, of course, you want to see Brandon McNulty up on the podium, and that's about it, because everything else really wasn't shown or was missed. It was kind of a bad viewing stage for spectators while you're watching from the Chesterfield. But you want to tune in here to the butterfly effect, because tomorrow's race, we start getting into the mountain stages. And yes, when you look at today's stage 3, UAE team members looked incredibly dominant. Guys, they were first with Brandon McNulty. They got third with Groschartner here on today's stage. And then fourth, Ayuso, who now is wearing the race leader's yellow jersey, starting tomorrow's race. The problem is, let's flip the page from today's stage 3 results and let's look at the general classification. Well, like I said, Juan Ayuso's in the hot seat, right? But we start looking a little further down. You got Ian Van Wilder there from Pseudo Quickstep in second at like 7 seconds. Then you start looking at the guys behind him like Vlasov at 10 seconds, and Carlos Rodriguez from Ineos. He had a solid day today on stage 3 too, and he's just a few seconds behind Vlasov. Everyone in the top 10 is about 30 seconds back from the race leader there of Juan Ayuso in that zone. So any kind of gap in tomorrow's final summit finish climb is big time problems for UAE team members if we're talking about the top 9 right behind Juan Ayuso. That means tactically they have to be really good tomorrow. Now, how would you play it? You most likely, if you're UAE team members, you're going to play it tomorrow saying, well, we got Adam Yates. He's about 115, 120 down on the GC, so we're going to have him start covering attacks. I don't like that move. I play tomorrow's race 100% all in for Ayuso. I go up to my Spaniard and I say, do you think you can win? Yesterday in stage 2, you look good. You rounded out the podium there with all the GC favorites, dragging everyone to the line. And there were 17 of the best riders here at Tour of Romandie, and 5 of those guys are past Grand Tour winners. So I say we ride 100% for Juan Ayuso. So what does that mean if you're listening to my channel? It means, let's say you were the best sprinter in the world. What tactic would you want to use? You'd want to control the field the whole time throughout the stage. Bring back the last breakaway guys on the last climb, somewhere earlier in the last climb or halfway up it. And then you want to bring Juan Ayuso all the way to 200 meters. You get him in the 200 meters, I don't think he's going to lose here at Tour of Romandie. Even if he doesn't win the stage, he only has to get third. And of course, it has to be Ian Van Wilder that wins the stage or Vlasov that wins the stage, because if Juan Ayuso gets even third, he keeps the race leader's jersey here. But you got to look at it like a field sprint, not like what we see so much throughout the last 3-4 seasons here of the European peloton, where they're like, well, UAE team members are going to put a guy in the break. You put Adam Yates in the break, he might not even be the best guy on GC up there. And I haven't seen the best tactics if I take you all the way back to a Abruzzo race in Italy, where we had Adam Yates trying to win going up the climb, and he's pulling Lysenko the whole time, only to get dropped from Lysenko into the sprint and lose time and the general classification later to the Astana rider. I don't like putting my hopes right now onto the shoulders there of Adam Yates being in the break. Most likely, he'll probably won't be the first best rider on general classification if he gets into a larger break, because he's so far down at about 1:15 that I don't know if I want to play Adam Yates. I like, from what I've seen from the Chesterfield, Juan Ayuso looked fantastic today. If the conditions were dry, I thought he would have won today's race. He looked fantastic yesterday. If I'm the director sportif, I'm saying, guys, especially Adam Yates, I want Adam Yates, I want Jan Christian there, and I want Sivakov there on the climb, and I want him 100% fresh. So I'm controlling the group. I don't care who's going up the road. It's easy to control on tomorrow's stage. It's only 155 kilometers. They got a big climb early that you can do damage control on anyone, because most likely the break's not going until just before that first big climb on tomorrow's stage 4. So you can control the gap up to that break on the first climb. And then, of course, you have Brandon McNulty that can start the beginning of the last climb. You got Sivakov, who looked fantastic yesterday covering moves. You have Adam Yates that can definitely get you into that last 200 meters. Now all of a sudden, Juan Ayuso just has to go to the line and make sure that he doesn't get beat from Ian Van Wilder or Vlasov. And if you want to look at Ian Van Wilder's career in terms of results, he doesn't have a ton of wins. So chances of him winning tomorrow for his career just to start rocketing and taking off, I know he's sitting second right now in the GC, so maybe that's a sign because there's no Remco Evenepoel here, his teammate that he's normally working for. But I don't see that Ilan Van Wilder wins tomorrow's race. Odds of that happening are rare, and if he does, Juan Ayuso still just needs to get second or third. So if you can bring it into 200 meters, UAE team members with the whole field intact, Juan Ayuso is going to win. When you're going up the last climb, if I'm Juan Ayuso and I got a strong team of pure climbers like this, I'm setting the tempo as slow as I need to set it. I'm not trying to blow guys off the back. I'm trying to bring it into 200 meters to go and then just get a top three or hope that Ian Van Wilder, of course, doesn't win the race, or Vlasov's not up there winning the stage either. Vlasov could be a little bit more scarier, but Ayuso's got great speed and should easily be able to follow the wheel of a Vlasov going up the climb. So if you start getting attacked by all the GC favorites, because you know Egan Bernal is going to try to go early because Carlos Rodriguez is fourth on the GC, his teammate. So they're going to try to put Egan Bernal in the break, going early, put pressure on those guys. But no problem. When we look at the riders like Grossschartner and McNulty, they can cover a rider like Egan Bernal and keep the gap close, then bring him back on the last climb, like I said. But think of it as a field sprint. If you're UAE team members, bring the whole group back together. 200 meters to go. You want at least Adam Yates with Juan Ayuso, and then you want him to do the sprint. Most likely, Juan Ayuso wins tomorrow's stage 4 here at Tour of Romandie if they ride it the way I want them to ride it. But we all know that normally doesn't happen here in the professional peloton. So like and subscribe, and we'll talk about the tactics tomorrow on the Butterfly Effect. See you then.